this is the 100th episode of the I Spark Change podcast. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to share my top 20 highlights from the first 100 episodes. Thank you for being here every week on the I Spark Change podcast, and we'll see you all next time for episode 101. What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others.
In case you missed it,
I'm not the most assertive person. I still can't sometimes hold boundaries, but I'm working on it and I'm way better than 10 years ago. That's all I need to do, really. Just be better over time. It's not going to happen like this. That's what I said.
available everywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome back, Impact Heroes. I am so excited to be here for a super duper special episode where I will share some positivity and some inspiration with you in spades, because today we are doing a recap of the first 100 episodes, because today this is the 100th episode of the I Spark Change podcast. I got my I Spark Change t-shirt on, which I haven't worn in a minute because I used to wear this all the time, so much for every I Spark Change video, and so it kind of got worn out, but I'm bringing it back for this 100th episode of the I Spark Change podcast. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share my top 20 highlights from the first 100 episodes. So this is a little different from the recap from last year, which is just from those episodes from the 2022. These are the first 100. So this goes back to when we started at the beginning of last year. We're going on 2 years here now, soon here in March, for the I Spark Change podcast. And so we thought it would be appropriate to recap the first 100 as we celebrate today. So I'll run through the top 5 of each group: first 25, second 25, third, and so forth. But my top 20 in no particular order other than in kind of numerical order. All right. So we'll start with what has to be one of my favorite episodes, was episode 1. And that was where I told you my story. I told you a little bit about how I created I Spark Change, how the writing of my book, 12 Hours of Heaven Lessons for a Better World, inspired me to start I Spark Change and to start this podcast, and shared a little bit about my accident from now 23 years ago that was inspiration for writing my book, and hence the podcast. So if you haven't heard that, if you're new to the show, go back and check out episode 1, where you learn all about why this podcast is in existence. Next up, I would have to say, was my first guest on the show. And this was a highlight from last year, but my first guest on the show, who was Allison Little.
You Can Do It Too is a really inspiring place to be, an empowering place to be when you can add value to the lives of others. And I never in a million years would have thought that it would have brought me here, right? That journey, those 5 words would have brought me to where I get to be right now.
Now, Allison was someone that I had met online, and she is a leadership coach and a speaker and just an incredible person. And she was actually our first social impact hero on our website. So if you go to isparkchange.com, you'll see that we have some docu-series, some short docu-series on social impact heroes, and she was the first one. And so I thought it was appropriate to have her as the first guest on the podcast. She talked about, having resilience and really showing up in life, and that's how you build your character and everything. So really, really special episode, because that was the very first interview I ever did. Next up would be the first live interview I did, and that was with Sophie Barron.
So my mission is to unify the world, and a lot of times people mistake that from loving thy neighbor, holding hands, and we're going to solve all of the world's problems.
Mhm.
When in reality, it's not about compromising your own beliefs or forsaking what you stand for. It's about finding a way to come closer together with someone else who you may have never otherwise met.
And this was done at the Next Gen event. I also did interview the founders of Next Gen. That was on a different show, but that was in New York City in 2022. And she was there, and she was up on stage and moderating a panel. And I said, you know what, she's really interesting. I'd love to interview her. And I asked, and she said, why not? And so we went downstairs to one of the rooms not being used, and we had a great conversation there about generational differences and having a voice, and things that are kind of pervasive in our society right now, like tribalism, and how we can eventually get to a unified world. And she's just so wise beyond her years, that someone you could learn a lot from. And I did, even though she's probably half my age, but it just shows you can learn from anyone, and especially with someone that has a lot of knowledge like she does. So you'll want to go check that out as well.
If you want to really stand out. The good news is it's not to scare you, because I know that there's a lot of saturation in a lot of different markets. But something that I say, and I will stand by to my final breath, is this: there's always room for the best.
That is my interview of Craig Siegel, my brother, as we call each other. And now this was the first time I experimented with a new way to introduce guests, because Craig has this fantastic way of just honoring guests and interviewing him, and he inspired me to do the same. So I uh, hopefully did him justice by giving him a phenomenal introduction. And in that introduction, I we talked about, and in the show we talked about, how to he talked about how to reinvent your mindset and how to upgrade your identity. And what's so interesting, and this is last year, I don't even think he knew he was going to write a book at that time, but then his book came out this year, reinvent invention formula, and that's where he talks about all those things. But he talked about them on my show, which was pretty cool. So discuss how you can change your life, and continues uh, you can continue to not only change your life, but change others. He does that. He has an amazing podcast, the CLS Experience, and a great community. He's super cool guy. So you can learn a lot from him. Talks about manifesting and all sorts of things. So check that out. Number 4 in my top 20 is episode with Rob Shear.
Each and every one of us have a story. Sometimes we think our story is not large enough or it has to be big, but it's not true. Each and every one of us who have a story have the opportunity to do something so important, and that is to tell it.
Now, Rob is the founder of Comfort Cases. And if you don't know who they are, they have donated over 200,000 care bags to kids in foster care. If you've ever seen, in a movie or anything, these foster care kids, and my sister worked in foster care for a long time, is when they go to home, they end up throwing all their things in a garbage bag and taking them from home to home. And Rob was a product of the foster care system himself. He had been in the foster care system when he was young, and he wanted to give them some dignity and unconditional love. And so he founded Comfort Cases, so they would never have to take their stuff in a trash bag. And now they get nice bags with toiletries and toothbrushes, things like that. So when they go to a new home, they have some respect and some comfort. And we talked about his harsh childhood, and how everything led him to get to what he's doing now. And I thought that was fantastic. So great cause, great organization, one I highly recommend you support, and one you can go check out. We'll put the link in the show notes. As far as our number 5, and that would be in our second group. This was in episodes 26 through 50. First off would be Jim Woodford.
As Charles Dickens said in his wonderful book, mankind should have been my business. And I was so involved in myself. And now I am determined, Rick, that if I have the opportunity, and I take nothing for granted.
Now, if you haven't seen this episode, this is one that you should go back and watch or listen to. This is our longest episode. We had to cut it into 2 parts, but Jim has an incredible story of dying and spending 11 Yes, 11 hours in heaven. So a little bit different from the title of my book, but he literally spent 11 hours in heaven. He was pronounced clinically dead for 11 hours and then came back from his time in heaven with no brain damage, no after effects, completely normal. And he talks about that incredible story of the time he spent in heaven and what he saw there and what he learned and what he experienced. And I was enraptured the whole time. I didn't even realize that we had spoken for that long. I just wanted more and more details. And so this is one that you will want to go back and check out from our top 100. It's episode 31 and 32 because they were so good. Also in that bunch, I spoke to someone that was a real cool treat that I had met earlier that year, and that is digital marketing expert and new author Amy Porterfield.
Unless you take the time and really think about it and allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to go big here, that if you're not clear about what you want, then you absolutely are not creating a life to get that.
She was so genuine and so present. You know, when you meet someone that they're just so focused on you and they're not focused on anything else, no matter what else is going around. And we were at an event and there's a lot of noise and pictures and all sorts of stuff, but she was just so focused on who I was and made me feel so seen and heard, and that I wanted to have a conversation with her. So I hit her up to have a conversation to come on the podcast, and we had a great connection, great conversation about her struggles, her insecurities, her mindset, believing in yourself, her purpose. And she paid me an awesome compliment. She told me at the end, I think it was on air, but she told me that it was she's done a lot of interviews, and this it was one of her favorite interviews. We had such a great connection, and that I reminded her of her husband Hobie. So haven't met him in person, but he must be a really cool guy. So I took that as a compliment. Also in that group, we had Dr. Alok Trivedi.
If you have challenges with your money, it's affecting your health. If you have challenges with your health, it's affecting your monny. And we separate these things in our life. Oh, it's like, oh, here's this piece and here's this piece and here's this piece. But it's not. It's all an integrated system.
Dr. Trivedi is someone who's known as Dr. Rewire, because I saw someone that I had met in person. I saw him at a conference. He taught someone in the audience how he literally rewired their brain there on the spot, and that's what he teaches, how to rewire our brains for maximum success. So super interesting, and someone that you definitely want to follow and see his amazing work. Next one up was a special episode, and you will understand why, because this is what we started out 2023 with, and that was with my beautiful wife, Tanya.
One thing I can just tell you is just be yourself, because people are going to love you for who you are and not what you're trying to be or trying to portray to be somebody else. They want you to be you.
I thought it was important. We were talking about how to spark change through fitness and health. And she's someone that I respect and admire because she embodies that every day and has for over 25 years. And so we had gotten in a discussion that was separate from us being a couple, but about being yourself and uniqueness, and how she got into fitness and how it changed her life, and eventually and changed mine as well, and had a big impact on my life as well. So that was a special episode for me, and how we kicked off 2023. Last one in that group prior to episode 50 was Jim Trunick.
My purpose is to build leadership in myself and others. Am I helping somebody?
Now, Jim is someone that spent over 35 years in leadership in the corporate world. He worked for one company, Allergan, which is a company that I worked for back years ago. And that's where we met. And he's also an author and a speaker and a executive coach and consultant, and very wise. And he shared a lot of the wisdom that he gained over those 35 years in leadership. And he's been one of my long-term mentors and someone that I highly respect. And I wanted to share him with this audience. And he delivered with a ton of wisdom. He also shared how he had been in a terrible bike accident, and the impact that had on his health, and how he came back from that after nearly being killed in a bike accident, which was only just recent, just in the past couple of years. So something that I'm sure many of you can relate to, having a traumatic experience and having to come back from that. So moving on, second half of our top 100 was Jackie Asko.
When somebody came knocking on my door and said, would you give 6 months to Spirit Radio to this project? It probably would have been easier to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't have time. I'm expecting a baby. I really felt pressed on my heart to say yes. And so I did say yes.
Now, Jackie is the founder of Spirit Radio in Ireland. And that episode played a special role for me because Spirit Radio is one of the places where I had one of my very first interviews. And it was my few international radio interviews. I've had a few since then, but this was the very first one. It was one that I had to wake up super early on a Saturday morning because of the time difference between here and Ireland for her Saturday morning show, and had to do a radio program. And there was some really cool things with which you'll have to go to that episode where we tell the story of something that happened on my interview with her. And that's what made when I was on her show, what made her being on my show extra special, because it helped me see the individual impact of iSpark Change with the story that I share on there of the young mother. So go back and check that out and hear that story of that young mother, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Moving on. Number 11, I think, this is, or 12, was Ken Rusk.
I can't explain how or why. You just seem to be blessed with more things when you give things away.
Now, Ken was a really cool guy. He was so relatable. And we had a great conversation about leadership and his book, Blue Collar Cash, which I highly recommend. I have read it and I've recommended it to many others and given it to a few people who I feel like can benefit, because it talks about how you don't need a college education to be successful. He started as someone that was, digging ditches, essentially, as the cliche goes. I mean, that's what he was doing, and septic tanks and so forth. And he built, mega $1 million company, and still has hundreds of people working for him today, and has a few companies and is highly successful. And that wasn't the impressive thing. What was impressive was his passion towards helping others and how he shares his secrets to success. And they're not about money, they're not about wealth or possessions. It's all about helping someone to be a better version of themselves. And he shares a lot of examples of how he did that, and all things that people can learn from, and things that I highly respected and try to do myself as I'm working with other individuals. So something that I highly recommend you listen to. All right. Next one up is Kristen Butler.
Serving the world, you're a hero in some way. There's so many people suffering that we all need to kind of spark that inner hero.
This was a treat indeed. She is the founder of the Power of Positivity. If you're familiar with them, Power of Positivity has well over 50 million followers across various social media platforms and accounts. And they are one of my original inspirations for creating iSpark Change. We discussed her fantastic book, The Comfort Zone, Building a Powerful Team, Living in Faith, Trusting the Process. And we had built a relationship, through just me following her and respecting her work and admiring her work. And we still have that relationship and friendship, and we support one another. And I learned a lot from her book, The Comfort Zone. So another read to add to your reading list. It was a memorable conversation indeed, and one that you will want to go back and listen to. Next episode was Paul Turner.
You really are powerful. You're much more powerful than what the world is trying to tell you that, what your limits are. You are unlimited. If I want to.
Now, Paul Turner, someone you've probably never heard of. He is the director of Food for Life Global. They are the world's largest vegan food relief organization with projects in over 65 countries. And get this, they serve 2 million freshly cooked meals daily, and have fed over 8 billion people. Yes, you heard that right, with a B, billion people. We discussed how we are all unlimited. We can all transform the world. How he is so humble. He was a monk for 14 years, sleeping on the ground with no pillow, which I can't even fathom. And how everything in his life led him to lead Food for Life Global and the incredible work that they're doing. I mean, it's just mind blowing. And he was a phenomenal guy, someone that if we lived closer, he lives in Tanzania or something. I mean, he's in some far off place, but if we lived closer, I mean, I would love just going for long walks with him and just learning from him every day. But someone that you could learn from too. So check that out. The last one in that group would be Dr. Rob Kelly.
Everybody's a leader, by the way, guys. If you're sat in a one-bedroom apartment somewhere in the corner listening to this, don't know your life's up to anything, you're never going to do anything, you're never going to amount to anything, I want to apologize to you because somebody's put that there.
Dr. Rob Kelly is someone I had met at an event. He discussed the power of your mindset, how he went from being homeless to being ultra successful, changing lives all over the world. I mean, he works with people that he probably couldn't tell you because they're celebrities and professional athletes and all sorts of famous people. And he helps them to basically change their mind. You know, he discussed the difference between living the dream and dreaming of living, and how everyone has that potential inside. You just have to change it up here, and how we're all leaders. And, it's just believing in yourself. Powerful stuff, to be sure. If you hear him speak, you will be inspired. I guarantee it. So listen to that episode and you'll get some inspiration. All right. Last 5 in our top 20 of the top 100 this was a special episode because it was only the second time that I interviewed a guest in person. Chip Baker.
I got to work on something every day to be the best version of myself. Like, I cannot afford to not work to be better. Like, I can't do that. Right? I don't have that luxury.
Chip happens to be fairly close to where I reside in Texas, and we had a fantastic conversation. I could feel his passion and his desire to positively impact others. It was just so palpable right there. I mean, I was sitting close, but you get the picture. And he's the author of, get this, 11 books. Dang. He's also a YouTuber and a coach who works every day to become the best version of himself, and that trickles off into others. And really, really enjoyed that time with him that we got to spend, one-on-one in person. After that, coming down to the end here, was Shambo.
When you want something so badly, you're usually not happy until you get it.
Mhm.
When you don't really want anything, you're happy, you're grateful when you receive something. But when you start from a place of gratitude, everything you get and everything that goes, you're still grateful. You're happy, You're fine. And you're coming from a place of control.
Now, here's a guy that I really connected with on a spiritual level, which is different from how, the way I connected with some other people that I'm talking about on the show. But this was cool considering we come from totally different backgrounds, me being a Christian, him being a Hindu. And which shows, we are also far more similar than we are different. And the big line I remember him sharing was, if you want to be happy, find a way to give others happiness. Those are wise words from a wise guest. He dropped a ton of wisdom on that episode. It was one of my favorite one of the favorite interviews I've done. And I've done hundreds of Zooms besides the show, hundreds of Zooms with people from all over the world. And that is still one of my favorite, one of those few where I had that spiritual connection. And that's probably why. Last few, we had Thomas Williams.
Make sure you find something that's more important to getting you out of bed than that's keeping you in the bed.
Thomas was episode 79, and he's a fellow Trojan from USC, like me. There's my ball right there. And he was an NFL player. He was a powerful speaker who shared how sometimes you have to lead from the back, right? Sometimes you're not the star of the team. You're supposed to support others and support the star. And he was very open. He spoke from his heart. Really cool dude. And someone that I like, not just because he was a fellow Trojan, but because he was a great guest as well. So I enjoyed that episode. Next one was Nettie.
I feel like for years I've been having this vision to reach the world with the message of purpose and hope and value found in Jesus Christ.
This is a highlight for me because she was our first music recording artist. She's a pop star from Nashville. I'm still our only musician that I know of on this show. We talked about her experience being bullied, finding acceptance of herself and others, and her message of hope and value, how she has that on her TV show now and shares that with kids, and in her singing, her music. It was really unique. And that's what I appreciate about that. And it was a fun conversation that left me with a smile on my face. And so I had to include it in here. And Ken Jocelyn.
It's not about being the hero or the guru. It's leaders who want something for people, not from people. And they truly have a heart to guide people.
That was our last highlight of this batch, last highlight of the day. It was actually episode 93, just aired not too long ago. And this was a treat because he's so positive, he's so inspirational, he's so motivational that these are 3 things that are hard to find every day in one person, right? And so we discussed the importance of small daily discipline decisions over time that will always equal monumental results, which are things that I practice, that compound effect. And also that when you have extraordinary habits, you're going to live an extraordinary life. And I think we're so similar in our beliefs and what we coach, how we coach others, that I think that's why we resonate together. So you talked about creating those powerful habits, and I felt like on fire after our conversation, because I was like, yes, these are all things that I talk about all the time. And it was great to hear, that affirmation from someone else who has shared it with thousands across the globe. So fantastic. And I mean, I could have included a lot more episodes, but for time, we want to keep it succinct. Want to share the top 20. We had to narrow it down to 20 for this 100th episode. It's been a fantastic group of guests. Remember, I only scratched the surface mentioning 20 out of the 100. There were so many others that were incredible. So you'll have to go back and listen, not just to these 20, but to many of the other episodes in our top 100. I promise you, it will be worth your time. I promise you will learn something. You will feel better having listened to the different guests, what they had to share, and it will help you to spark change in others. So I want to finish up by thanking you, our loyal audience, for supporting the iSpark Change podcast. Thank you for listening to the episodes every week. And please comment, share the iSpark Change podcast with others. That's the only way we're going to grow. Please drop a review. If it's 5 stars, drop a 5-star review. If it's less than that, I want to know as well, so we can see how we can improve. So share a review for us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That would really help us, or on whatever platform you watch. And I guarantee that I will respond to everyone that sends us a direct message. I will respond personally. And if you do go back and watch any of these shows and you are disappointed, I want you to let me know. If you let me know personally, I promise you, I will spend an hour of my time. I will give you 1 hour of my time to help you uncover areas that you need to grow and to help you find what you're looking for, if you can find it on the iSpark Change podcast. So I'm going to throw that out there to the community. We'll see who takes me up on it. I want to thank you for supporting us. Thank you for listening and watching us on our YouTube channel. And thank you for being here every week on the iSpark Change podcast. And we'll see you all next time for episode 101.
Do you want Rick to speak at your event? Here's what others have to say.
Did not know his story, and it was so inspirational, and his presence on stage, his authenticity was just incredible.
Performance made me feel some type of way. My name is Craig Siegel.
If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, hire Rick. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed.
Visit rickcornelis.com to book him today.
Remember, Impact Heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.